Welcome to Dolphin Dive Daily, your go-to spot for everything Miami Dolphins. If you bleed aqua and orange, hit that subscribe button and join the pod. The Miami Dolphins have spent most of this season under the microscope for their defensive struggles, especially when it comes to stopping the run. Fans have been quick to point fingers, analysts have torn apart the film, and the numbers haven't been pretty. At the center of much of that conversation sits rookie defensive tackle Kenneth Grant, the team's first-round pick who was supposed to help fix that glaring weakness. Coming out of Michigan, Grant was advertised as a rare blend of power, quickness, and relentless energy, a player who could collapse pockets and clog running lanes all at once. But the early returns were underwhelming, to say the least. Through the first few weeks, Grant looked like a player swimming in the deep end, still trying to adjust to the speed, technique, and mental chess match of NFL football. Yet something changed over the last two games, and suddenly, the rookie everyone was starting to question looks like he might be figuring it out. It all started subtly. Against the Chargers in Week 6, the stat sheet didn't explode, but it told a story of progress, his first sack, 2 pressures, and more importantly, a sense that he was finally playing with rhythm. Then came Week 7 against the Cleveland Browns, where Grant looked like a completely different player. He wasn't just occupying space, he was controlling it. 5 tackles, 1 for a loss, and several other plays where he was right there, forcing the running back to make an early cut or the quarterback to shift in the pocket. It wasn't dominance yet, but it was the kind of performance that makes coaches sit up in the film room and say, "There it is." Dolphins defensive coordinator Anthony Weaver certainly noticed, and when he spoke to reporters on Thursday, there was a tone of satisfaction, not surprise. "To me, it started 2 weeks ago, and it started in practice," Weaver said, leaning into the mic with that familiar coach's half-smile. "He just seemed more relaxed out there. He kind of just let the pressure fall off and just went out there and played football." When you start to gain confidence, particularly as a young player, and you pair that with technique and fundamentals that have been continually growing, you start to see games like that. Weaver's words paint the picture of a player who isn't just learning the playbook, he's learning how to breathe again. You can see it in his body language on the field now. Early in the year, Grant would come off the ball hesitantly, his first step uncertain, his pad level inconsistent. He looked like a guy trying to remember 10 coaching points all at once. Hands here, eyes there, step this way, anchor low, instead of just playing. That's not unusual for a rookie defensive lineman. The jump from college to the NFL trenches is one of the steepest in football. But what Weaver and defensive line coach Austin Clark have done brilliantly is strip things down for him, let him rediscover his natural instincts, and build his confidence 1 rep at a time. Clark, who's been hands-on with Grant since the moment he arrived in Miami, echoed that sentiment with a mix of patience and pride. "Definitely encouraged with KG," he said, using the rookie's nickname like a veteran coach who's already formed a connection with his player. "I think comfortability in the scheme and the way we're playing him, as well as some of the technique and fundamentals, and kind of working into pro playing shape." That last part might sound minor, but it's huge. Playing defensive tackle in the NFL isn't just about brute strength. It's about endurance, leverage, and the ability to explode off the ball with the same intensity in the fourth quarter as you did in the first. It's one thing to dominate offensive linemen in the Big Ten, where the talent gap can be significant. It's another thing entirely to line up across from all-pro guards and face double teams from 320-pound veterans who know every trick in the book. Clark made it clear that the adjustment period is normal, not a red flag, and that the coaching staff is seeing exactly the kind of growth they hoped for. The Dolphins haven't made things easy on Grant, either. While he's played the majority of his snaps at the 3-technique spot, lining up just outside the guard, he's also been shuffled around to nose tackle and even a bit of defensive end. That kind of positional flexibility is a double-edged sword for a rookie. On one hand, it shows the coaching staff trusts his intelligence and versatility. On the other, it means more mental load, more techniques to master, and more opportunities to make mistakes. But for Grant, it appears to have accelerated the learning curve. He's been forced to see the game from multiple angles, to understand blocking schemes more deeply, and to react faster. Weaver and Clark both hinted that this approach has been deliberate. Challenge the kid early, make him uncomfortable now so that he'll be unshakable later. And to his credit, Kenneth Grant seems to be embracing that challenge. Players can go one of two ways when faced with early struggles: shrink under the weight of expectation or use the pressure as fuel. Grant appears to have chosen the latter. You can tell by the way his teammates talk about him, the quiet confidence, the work ethic, the lack of excuses. He's not the kind of rookie to chirp in interviews or flash his draft pedigree. He's more of a grinder, the guy who stays after practice, who watches extra film, who asks questions in meetings. That mindset might not make highlight reels, but it's what turns potential into production. Still, the Dolphins know potential isn't enough. When you spend the 13th overall pick on a defensive tackle, the expectation is that he'll become a difference maker, not just a solid starter. Austin Clark didn't shy away from that reality. He does have a long way to go, Clark admitted. He knows that, and he's a guy you can really challenge. And that's something we're doing with him. And he's getting better every day. That's the kind of tough love every young defensive lineman needs. The acknowledgement that improvement is happening, but the standard remains high. Miami didn't draft Grant to be decent. They drafted him to anchor their defense for the next decade. For now, there are clear areas where the Dolphins want to see him take the next step. One of them is in his pass rush. Nobody expects Grant to rack up double-digit sacks. That's not his game. But his combination of power and quickness should allow him to collapse pockets more consistently. Through 7 weeks, he's posted 8 pressures and 1.5 sacks, which isn't bad, but it's not yet enough to tilt games. The other area is in run defense, ironically the one he was drafted to fix. Against the Browns, we saw glimpses of what he can be when he trusts his eyes and fires off the ball. His college tape at Michigan was full of moments where his first step would blow up a play before it even started. That same explosiveness has been slower to show up in Miami, but the coaches believe it's coming. It's less about athleticism and more about confidence, knowing the play call, anticipating the block, and attacking without hesitation. There's also something to be said for chemistry. The Dolphins' defensive front has been banged up, rotated, and reshuffled all season. For a rookie trying to find rhythm, that instability can make everything harder. Different line mates mean different communication styles, different stunt responsibilities, and different trust levels. But the recent stretch has brought a little more consistency, and Grant seems to be thriving because of it. You can tell he's starting to anticipate what the guy next to him is going to do, rather than just reacting. That's when defenses start to click, when individual talent turns into synchronized chaos. For Anthony Weaver, who's been around elite defensive linemen throughout his coaching career, the goal isn't to rush Grant's development, but to keep the arrow pointing up. There's going to be a lot of good games ahead for Kenneth Grant just because of who he is and how he works, Weaver said, summing up the sentiment perfectly. It's not about one breakout performance. It's about consistency, about stacking good days on top of each other until excellence becomes the norm. The truth is, fans often expect first-round picks to transform a team overnight, but the NFL rarely works that way, especially in the trenches. Development is messy. It comes in spurts, with setbacks in between. One week you're being questioned on talk radio, the next week you're being praised as a cornerstone. Kenneth Grant's story so far is the perfect snapshot of that reality. Early struggles, flashes of brilliance, and a steady climb toward the player the Dolphins believed he could be. The encouraging part is that Miami's coaches aren't just talking in cliches. They see the work. They see the progress in practice, the improved hand placement, the quicker reads, the balance between aggression and discipline. Those little details are what separate a good defensive tackle from a great one. If Grant continues on this trajectory, the Dolphins might look back on these early growing pains as a necessary part of his rise. Every great lineman, from Aaron Donald to Chris Jones, went through that phase where the mental side of the game caught up with the physical gifts. The difference is how you handle it, and by all accounts, Grant is handling it the right way. Miami still has a lot to fix defensively, but seeing their rookie finally turn the corner might be the spark they needed. Because if Kenneth Grant can become the disruptive force they envisioned when they called his name on draft night, everything else, the pass rush, the linebackers, even the secondary, gets better by extension. So, as the season pushes forward and the Dolphins fight to keep pace in the AFC, all eyes will be on number 95 in aqua and orange. He's not there yet, but the flashes are getting brighter, the confidence louder, and the belief inside that building stronger. Kenneth Grant is learning what it means to be a pro, and Miami's defense might just be learning what it means to have a future star in the making. Still with us? Then show some love. Hit that like button and let us know in the comments. What's your take on the Fins this week? Alright, guys, let's talk about the Miami Dolphins, because the NFL world just got rocked. There's this thunderstorm of rumors swirling around South Beach, and honestly, it feels like the Dolphins' locker room just got hit with a bombshell. The whispers have been out there for weeks, but now it's official. Jalen Waddle and WADDLE CHUBB are on their way out. And according to what's leaking from inside the organization, there's no going back. No patching things up. No, we're working through it. The team has broken its silence, and from the sound of it, this is a total point of no return. Neo Tim Volta. As they say, there's no turning back now. This story didn't come out of nowhere. Fans have felt the tension for a while. You could see it brewing on the sidelines. The body language, the quiet arguments, the glances that spoke volumes. Waddle, who has been one of Tua Tagovailoa's favorite weapons since joining the team, started to look frustrated in recent games. His targets were down, the chemistry seemed off, and there were moments where it looked like he was just done with it. On the other side of the ball, WADDLE CHUBB, the defensive powerhouse who came in with huge expectations after that high-profile trade, started showing signs of discontent too. The guy was supposed to be the heart of the Dolphins' defense, but lately, it felt like he was playing with a chip on his shoulder. Not the motivational kind, but the "I'm not being valued here" kind. Sources close to the organization have been dropping hints that things inside the Dolphins facility have been tense for months. It's not just about performance or contracts, it's about culture. The Dolphins have been trying to create this fast-paced, high-energy environment built around speed and explosive plays, both on offense and defense. But when you've got big personalities like Waddle and Chubb, sometimes that energy turns volatile. Some insiders are saying that what really broke things down was communication, or the lack of it. Players reportedly felt like they weren't being heard by the coaching staff, that certain voices in the locker room had more weight than others, and when you mix ego with frustration, you get exactly what we're seeing right now, an explosion. When the Dolphins front office finally spoke up, fans expected a measured, corporate response, something along the lines of "we're evaluating our options," or "we're focused on the future." But that's not what happened. Instead, the message that came out was blunt, even cold. The tone was clear: the team is moving on. It wasn't about negotiation or reconsideration, it was about finality. This was the kind of statement that tells you bridges have been burned. One insider close to the situation described it as irreversible. The Dolphins, for better or worse, are entering a new era, and Waddle and Chubb are not part of it. Now, fans are split right down the middle. Some are heartbroken, especially when it comes to Waddle. The guy brought electricity to Hard Rock Stadium. Every time he touched the ball, you could feel that buzz in the crowd. His connection with Tua was one of the most exciting things to watch in recent Dolphins history. Losing him feels like ripping out part of the team's identity. Others, though, think it's the right move. They argue that if players aren't fully committed to the vision, to that Mike McDaniel speed-first, team-first philosophy, then it's better to move on before things get toxic. Chubb's case is a little more complicated. While he's undeniably talented, his production has been inconsistent, and his contract has been a topic of debate. Some analysts think that freeing up that cap space could open the door for big moves in the offseason. But let's be real. You don't just lose two key players without there being deeper issues. The real question here is, what's happening behind the scenes in Miami? Because if both Waddle and Chubb wanted out, that suggests something bigger than just individual frustration. Are players losing faith in McDaniel's leadership? Is there tension between the coaching staff and the front office? Or is this just the natural fallout of a team that's been under immense pressure to deliver? Remember, the Dolphins have been in that awkward middle ground, good enough to make the playoffs, but not good enough to go all the way. When expectations rise and results stall, that's when cracks start to show. And here's where things get even more interesting. Reports are suggesting that this decision didn't come from just one side. Apparently, there were conversations, heated ones, where both Waddle and Chubb expressed that they were done. Done with how things were being managed, done with the internal politics, done with the feeling that the organization wasn't matching their ambition. That kind of sentiment doesn't come overnight. It builds up over time, through broken promises, miscommunication, and frustration. You can almost picture those behind-the-scenes moments, the tense meetings, the locker room silence after a tough loss, the looks exchanged between players and coaches who know something's broken but don't say it out loud. And then comes that phrase, "There's no going back." It's the kind of statement that doesn't just signal change, it screams transformation. The Dolphins are choosing to reset, no matter the cost. They're betting on their system over their stars, on their long-term philosophy over short-term comfort. That's risky. History in the NFL shows that when teams start cutting ties with cornerstone players, things can either go spectacularly right or disastrously wrong. Look at what happened with teams that tried similar rebuilds. Some found new life, others fell apart completely. For Dolphins fans, this is an emotional roller coaster, because on one hand, you want to believe in the process. On the other, you can't help but feel like something precious is slipping away. There's also the question of timing. Why now? We're not talking about off-season moves or quiet trade whispers. This is happening in the middle of intense competition, when team morale matters most. That timing alone raises eyebrows. Could this be part of a bigger strategy? Maybe an early signal that Miami is preparing for a major roster shakeup next year? Or is it damage control, a desperate attempt to stop internal chaos from spilling into the public eye? Whatever it is, the Dolphins front office knew this would send shockwaves through the league. And maybe that's exactly what they wanted, to make a statement that no one, not even star players, is bigger than the team. Social media has been absolutely on fire since the news dropped. Dolphins fans are debating nonstop, with half of Twitter in mourning and the other half trying to justify the decision. Some former players have even weighed in, hinting that this kind of internal tension has been brewing for longer than anyone realized. "You could see it coming," one ex-Dolphin wrote. "When the energy in that building shifts, it's only a matter of time before people start walking out." That comment alone tells you everything. This wasn't a sudden outburst. It was an inevitable explosion. Still, you have to wonder what this means for Tua. Losing Waddle changes everything for him. Their chemistry was something special. It was instinctive, almost telepathic. That kind of connection doesn't come around often. Without Waddle, Tua's game will have to evolve. And then there's the defense, which loses one of its key playmakers in Chubb. The Dolphins' defensive line was already under scrutiny, and this departure leaves a hole that won't be easy to fill. The ripple effects are massive. But despite all the chaos, there's a strange sense of clarity in Miami. The message from the organization is simple. This is about accountability, about culture, about setting a tone for the future. They're doubling down on their identity, even if it means letting go of players who once defined it. And that's the paradox. Sometimes, to move forward, you have to burn bridges. It's painful, it's messy, but maybe that's what it takes to build something lasting. Fans might not like it, and analysts will debate it for months, but one thing's for sure. The Dolphins aren't hiding anymore. They've spoken. The silence is broken, and the truth is out. Jalen Waddle and Bradley Austin Chubb are gone, and there's no coming back. Whatever happens next, this moment will be remembered as the turning point, the day Miami decided that the future mattered more than the past. And whether that future shines bright or burns out, well, only time will tell. But one thing's certain, the NFL just got a whole lot more interesting. That's a wrap for today's dive. If you're loving the content, share it with a fellow Dolphins fan, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a splash. Fins up.